tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
This is Dave and Mickey Shiny Slide Out on WCCR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations in the chat room. I'm in there right now. Come and join me. And it's also a great place to get your merch. Support the station. Do it that way. This is show number 522, and if Mickey was with me, he would say 220 and 500. But you know what you can do? You can actually catch us online, on air, and anywhere on your smart device. So grab an app and listen anywhere, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. That's nearly 522 times I've suggested people get a Grace tabletop digital radio. Woo! If you missed Solaris' show, well, you didn't really, because you can just jump in the archives and you can go and download it, because, you know what, I do that if I've missed it. And there's a number of really cool shows that I love to get the archives and just listen, like background radio. But because, everyone's busy, why don't you just download a whole bunch and binge it? You can do that. It's currently free, and the instructions are there on the website, and that is revolution.radio. But having heard Solaris' show, I can kindly say I loved it. You should listen to it. It was initially solo. Solaris is solo. Very rare for that to happen. Great show. Great host. But a friendly voice called up. Steve. Steve rang up. He's another host. And they had a really cool conversation. And actually, I personally love the story about his iguana. And I put in the chat room, Jub, hoping, but there wasn't any reference to that. They clearly weren't looking into the chat room. But, not every host has the time. And it was an engaging conversation, which I really enjoyed. And there was no single topic, and it just kept flowing. I really love that. Great style. Thank you, Solaris, for warming up the audience for us. Now, if you're still awake, I hope you're a shift worker, or you're just suffering from insomnia, or if this is played in prime time, woohoo, good for you. I hope it's a beautiful day. Now, I'm broadcasting out of 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶𝐶 country. That is the traditional custodians of the land, and in their very small pockets, kind of like just a little bit bigger than the city of regions, there were independent regions dedicated to not a family history. And there were some wars where they battled each other, only because, land grabs, but I'll get onto that. And each had a unique brand of the language for themselves. And as you spread across the land, that significantly changed from the east to the west, the north to the south. 𝐫𝐶𝐯 is it's a corridor for people coming from the north to the south. It's also the first of all of the peoples. This is the origin site. This site had 𝐵𝐴𝐴𝐸 and his three brothers' story come down. One died, one stayed, and one returned with the father back as aliens in his rocket ship. Their story says he climbed a tree into space. But, imagine a rear landing rocket would resemble a metal tree, but they didn't have metal, so it's just the verbiage. That's all it is. Anyhow, because of that, we acknowledge, that's Mickey and I, or Shiny Side Out collectively, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Now, the way that we say this, and it used to be and emerging, because they're emerging leaders, but I respect everybody. It doesn't matter. And you've got to admit that they kept the place pretty sweet. If they were renters, you would let them rent again. Let them stay at your house again, because they didn't ruin anything. They changed the landscape, but then the landscape, as in the kinds of trees that were here, they're all now completely fire resistant. which is great. Even the most intense fires, most of the trees will still be around after. Not like the pine trees, the gum trees themselves. They even survive and reproduce because of the fire. Some of the gum nuts, that's their seed pods, won't open until fire. So that's something else. You got to admire what they've done. Us, well, yeah, we know we've dug huge holes, sold dirt to other countries because the dirt has a value. We've basically raped and pillaged the environment. In fact, the people who were looking for one of the mining organizations blew up a cave that was at least 80,000 years old and was meant to be protected. They just blew it up. Who cares? Whatever. Oops. Was that us? Yeah, that was you guys. You destroyed it. Soz. Move on. And that was the kind of attitude. There was no huge apology. There wasn't, hey, we'll dig you a new cave, because that would be meaningless anyway. How about we help you restore it to what it was? No. Did they pay out tons of money to the Aboriginals for that? No, because it's just a worthless cave to the mining giant. They didn't care. They were supposed to leave a section of, around the cave to keep it intact, but no. They had explosives right up really close to it, and it caused problems. And I'm being very generous. Anywho, this is David Mackey's Shiny Side Out. And as usual, we have a news hour and then we get on to a topic. So today's news headlines are just clearly Ukraine and Russia. Can't leave them out if I'm talking about Ukraine. COVID fatigue, because we've all, we're dealing with that messaging still around the third year. World news, politics, and inflation, because I think these all affect us in one way, shape, or another. So I'm going to commence and talk about the Ukraine. Something interesting came up this week, which was, and I'm going to put the middle screen on, and if you're listening to this on radio, you can jump onto the Shiny Side Out channel and watch it live so you can see what I'm talking to. Not who, what I'm talking to. So this was the Volodymyr Zelensky deepfake that didn't, I wasn't, straight away I got, nah, that's fake. Too many blinks. I watched too many of his other videos. Head size proportion just didn't seem right. It's a really old footage of him because his beard has grown and it's grayer now. So their feed data for the deepfake, it's not AI, but the deepfake program was old images. So that was really interesting to watch. The blink rate was just way off. And at one point, his whole head moved, probably a quarter of an inch to the left for about 3, 4, 5 frames, and then back again. It was atrocious. Pardon me. And if you couldn't tell that was a deep fake, maybe you were only watching it on a little tiny mobile phone screen, like, old school, you may not be able to tell. But his voice was different. He didn't have any of the mannerisms that we've all come to know when he speaks. He's very animated. He moves his head around a lot. Doesn't matter where he is. And anyway, this video was uploaded. I'm not going to play it because that would be a copyright violation for the Telegraph, I suspect, because they've got some things across over the top of it, and that would get picked up. But what I'm talking about here is the deepfake, and this was the first time a deepfake world leader, he's a prime minister, right? So, in a war, was used by the opposition to try to convince their people to put down their weapons. In the past, we had leaflet campaigns, leaflet bombs. I think that was a nice term for MASH. It's just, paper pamphlets saying you're on the wrong side, blah, blah, blah. But this was the first time, I think, that images and audio were used in a combined manner to attempt to get the soldiers of your opposition to put their weapons down. You know, other than that, we haven't done deepfakes. We've done news stories, right? Surely, news articles. Here we go, you know, showing the real side or even fabricated side. Whatever, you know, floats the boat of the people who are going to put down their weapons or switch sides or quit. If you only get 3%, oh, cool, that's still a win. Pardon me. Yeah, so this was, I think, the first time in history. We didn't see it any other time, or maybe it just maybe they were out there, but they didn't get this far. But certainly, if you've got, I don't think there's been a Biden deep fake that was believable, or a Putin deep fake that was believable. But surely, wouldn't you put a couple of mil into it? Surely, right? If you're going to give $1 billion to the enemy, to your ally in a war, wouldn't you put a couple of mil even into making a really nice Putin deep fake that you couldn't tell? Not like, you know, Jabba the Hutt or Luke Skywalker or any of the Star Wars people, the Grand Moff Tarkin character, which was so unbelievable, and you know, Princess Leia, all of those characters that were kind of brought back to life to be in a film, so appalling. Today's standard, if they did this level of deep fake for any of those characters in the Star Wars films, it would have been about 100% better. Wow. Take that, George Lucas. Anywho, so having said that, Russian hackers had uploaded it to a Ukrainian news website, from what I understand, and then that video was beginning to go viral. Kind of, I don't think anyone believed it because the voice was wrong. But, you know, it's like you may as well have Donald Duck, you know, doing the voice for Volodymyr. It's so unbelievable. I mean, sorry, not believable. So fake sounding. It wasn't like, was it Peel when he did Obama? That was good because he already did a great voice. So this is, you know, I've seen all the Tom Cruise fakes, which are pretty good because the guy does a really good impersonation anyway, and he's kind of about the right height, and so just doing a deep fakes video on his face, it solves everything. Don't have to worry about anything else because he's got everything else, all the mannerisms. This had nothing. You know, the body was almost completely still, which is not him. Anyway, so Twitter and Meta did the best they could to kind of block it when they discovered it. I don't think they discovered it. I think someone told them about it. But it did still make it to the media a couple of days ago. Right? And this distribution program that we have of videos, you know, I remember seeing, you know, censored beheading videos from the old ISIS days. You know, then we had that problem that looked like it might have been blue screen and in a studio because the shadows were inconsistent with each other, you know, with the background imaging. Anyway, extraordinary, but they weren't, well, they were faked. They weren't the leader themselves being deep faked. I remember my first example was that I think the CNN, that pair of silly people, there was only one gas mask and one helmet, and there was two people, and this was the Iraq invasion by the US, and they were meant to be at the hotel, and it was all faked. Hilarious. And so, you know, you would lose one or the other or both if there was truly gas, because one wouldn't know when to put the mask on until the other one had died, and then it could be too late. Or if there was an explosion, one would get ripped through by a shrapnel and the other one would only have a head intact. Hilarious. Just comical. If you look for that, and then there's a lot of laughing that you're never going to be able to recover from. Okay, so those other videos that made it through, it's like it's the way to get video to the media by uploading it, and the lag time on the responsiveness of those platforms to remove it meant it was already just distributed. You know, they can still do it privately anyway. They can, set it to private, only allow a certain person to have a look and that kind of limits where it could go. But no, they do it public. I remember seeing the actual videos before they were removed, and you desensitize yourself to it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a morbid fascination, kind of like slowing down at a car crash. I actually get out and help, but slow down a car crash to see the damage, to see the decapitated body, or to see the mangulated, remains of what is there. You don't want to have to face it emotionally, because that's pretty tough. I've stopped at an accident where the person had completely died, but we tried for ages to resuscitate the poor fellow, and he didn't make it. And look, it's presumed that he'd already passed. But anyway, so sad. So, what about Russia? Okay, that's about 19 minutes. Russia. Okay, so Putin is still determined on taking Ukraine. That is the big message here, right? Why? It doesn't seem to match any of the messaging that he's giving his own people, saying, I'm going to denazify the Ukraine. Well, there's probably neo-Nazis in every country in the world. Why would he use that as the excuse? Well, do you know what? This has been said a lot. We shouldn't, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. Is probably the best analogy. We shouldn't be so critical of a person going in and attacking another country. That's been done. It's been done by the West for a while, 20 years. But there's something really interesting about this. He wants the country. I don't think he just wants to eliminate Nazism. I think that messaging is flawed. Well, why didn't you just send some people in to infiltrate those groups and destroy them from the inside? Surely Russia's got some good assassins. They could have just, decapitated the leaders. The leadership. No, I don't mean with swords. I mean take them out one way or another. Surely they could have used social media to influence those people back into the, not into the fray, but that's bad. Into the group again, or back into society. They could have tried everything, but it doesn't seem that they've done that. I ask, to what end then is this all about? If he took out all the Nazism, then he could just drive the tanks home again. Hey, we're done. It's all good. We got rid of them all. And that's it. But if he takes out Volodymyr somehow, or just locks him up in prison, and then installs a puppet government, which is just a pro-Russian government that results in the voting, like a plebiscite, or a public vote, or just a political vote, where they request on bended knee, let's join Russia. Let's all join. Hey, Ukraine, we're all going to join Russia. Who's with me? And they go, yeah, because there's no dissent left. And now they're part of Russia. Russia has now expanded the buffer zone around Moscow, which is what this whole thing appears to be. But that couldn't be the end. I would put, I'd bet $1, only $1. I'm not a real betting man, but $1. That wouldn't be the end of his land grabs. Convinced of it. So what's China doing? China's, well, hey, they reached out for money, but on the books, nothing will transpire. I think that big face palm where Russia's gone, oh, we've run out of money, man. Can we have some more money? Hey, China, you got any money? You got any cash? Because we're out and we want to keep fighting in the war with our really old equipment. And there would have been a face palm from China going, oh, what? You're kidding, right? How you talk up all this money? Where is it all? I don't know. I think we might have spent it. I think they sent all their old kit in there. Then I heard this week that they used a hypersonic weapon. Where's the wreckage? What did it hit? Was it a test? Because, the people making the weapons they look for these opportunities. Hey, we can do a pilot, or we can do a proof of concept weapon. We want to, just test it, just give it a go. Here's one for free, but if you want any more, you got to buy them. It's quite possible that if that was used, that would be very interesting. There's a lot of West buy-in on, delivery of anti-aircraft weaponry, anti-missile weaponry. If they put like an Iron Dome in there or something, that could be interesting. There's a lot of phalanx, where those auto turrets, 50 mil, or is it 100 mil, 50 mil auto turrets that track targets, multiple targets, determine which one is the best one to defeat first because of priority system. It's determined that with the most threat. So if there's 3 planes coming and one is going at you and the other are going somewhere else, it would determine that the one coming at you is the threat, and it would take it out first and then wait for the best opportunity to be able to attack the others. If they flee, it doesn't need to attack. So that's really cool as an anti-ship defense system. It's pretty handy, and also American bases have those. I just like the bird; they're really cool. And with the not incandescent, what's it called? With the rounds that glow red, so you can see their trace. With the tracer rounds, that was what I knew. I'd get to the word in a minute. My poor brain. All right. So I believe that if he did take Ukraine, if all of that transpired and it became Russia, that then he would keep going west towards Germany, taking Poland, and right up to the German door. I strongly believe that he's trying to recover back the old USSR the way it used to be. Is that a good thing? Hey, look, I'm not the leader, although I do love the leader. I love the leader. I love all the leaders. I love the AI. I don't want to be the first to the wall when the revolution comes. So, hedge my bets. I'm betting odds and evens. I don't even care. I just want to stay alive. I want to be able to commentate on this stuff and at least have a reasonable aspect remaining when that does happen. I want to still be able to think. I don't want to be simplified by some drug given to me by the government or by those working against me. I wouldn't like that, but I appreciate it. If you're thinking of doing it, then I was onto something. Like when my brakes were emptied entirely with no stain of fluid on the ground. There was zero fluid in the entire system. Someone had drained it. When we were talking about something which I won't mention ever again, because I don't want my kids to have to start my car. All of that is leading to, as we've been told, not that I'm saying it's the direct cause, because I think the Great Reset is stretching its legs a little here. That we're seeing food going up, but food's going up because fuel is going up. Because fuel is going up, it's usually because of the shortage of oil. And the shortage of oil is only the per barrel pumped per day count. Now, when it got to its lowest, that was when Saudi Arabia decided to, just produce heaps. Yeah, let's get it all out the door. Probably all their stock. Let's just sell it all. Yeah, let's pump up our price. We need some money. So if that's the best way we can make money, sell more oil. And that brought the price down to about $50 a barrel, which is really great. And it's like 110, 115, 120, something like that now, which to double the price back then is equal to 3 to 4 times the price today. And that back then was only during the virus in the last 3 years. So we saw almost the lowest per barrel price in the last 5 years, combined with the highest price in history of both the barrel and the pump price. But the barrel and the pump price is a relationship, yes, but it isn't. It isn't. They're not locked together. The forever rising pump price has no bearing on the manufacturer, because you'd think by now in the last 100 years they would have, I mean, mind the pun, refined that price and manufacturer processes down so much that they'd be able to successfully make something for almost free. Almost. I know it cost a lot to stand up a refinery. I know it has to get shipped all around the world for some reason, because we don't buy oil locally and refine it locally in Australia anymore. It's refined overseas, and we just buy the refined product, which is delivered to us, which is such a crazy thing. It's mind-boggling. Even in Australia, we had a refinery, some 30 k's from the airport, which was producing aviation fuel and pumped underground, which was, I think, kind of revolutionary at the time, and sent through to the airport for them to use. It was really cool. We don't do that anymore. It's not a thing. Yeah, the small quantities, but nothing like what we used to have. So, what is making everything go up? Well, Saudi Arabia flatly refused, absolutely flatly refused to increase its oil production. Why? Well, they're talking China. They're talking China, and they said, we don't want to have to buy and sell oil in the American dollar any longer. We'd like to use the yuan for that. Let's do that. Okay, says China. And so, Biden, I was going to call him toothless old Biden, but, that's probably a little too rude even for me. Probably best stated as something like, it used to be Creepy Joe, then Sleepy Joe. That was to try and get Creepy Joe out of the media. He's still Creepy Joe, still loves smelling hair. I don't know what he likes more, is the young child smell or the young child's hair smell. He should just be given a bottle of that same shampoo, and he can just smell that. It's so creepy. But yet he got in. I know his son was doing crack and hose. At the same time, his laptop was left behind. Remember the fake news? That all of that was meant to be Russian collusion. And nothing could be further from the truth. It was all found to be real. And that was all. Their messaging was shut down. You couldn't even share the news report from the newspaper that published it. That was kind of online at the time, but you couldn't share that. That was banned. You couldn't talk about it because that messaging was also banned. And why? Well, it was banned by big tech because they were kind of left-leaning and didn't want any dissent because they were determined to get Trump out. Didn't care what messages were there, but now they've discovered, maybe 10% of those who, if they'd heard about the Biden laptop being real, which it was, and that the Russian collusion thing wasn't ever stated, which there should be an investigation into lying to the CIA or FBI or whatever have you. That should have people, maybe the whole DNC, I think I said that right, jailed for propagating it. I've seen the original letter that said it was just that that newspaper's opinion that it wasn't, that might have been Russian collusion and nothing more. But that's not the way it played out. The media said it was for some reason and shut it all down. And I think it's because of a bunch of favors that everyone's owned and they can do whatever they want. And there's someone bigger and higher up holding the strings or holding the favor book, the book of favors. Now, I would have presumed initially it was Epstein or the minders that he fed the information to, or Ghislaine Maxwell fed the information to, so everyone's owned. But I couldn't say because I don't know. Someone was definitely pulling strings, though, to make that happen. I wonder what the new gen place will be like. I think they're all going to be owned by the look of where we're going. I remember, 15 years ago, it wasn't so bad. It's getting so bad lately that now even social media, which is our communications platform, it's almost the communications platform for the people because there isn't anything else. Twitter, yeah, I'm just going to yell into an open void and hope that someone follows me. That's not a communication method. That's a broadcast method. And so Facebook is the only thing that you can really have groups and you can openly discuss topics. And discussion is only awkward to those who disagree with the conversation or it doesn't work to their agenda. It's plain and simple. And the government should stay the hell away from every private person's business. I really cannot, I can't say that loudly enough. It's the way it used to be, where certainly that train left the station a long time ago now. 2001, I believe, was the turning point, possibly even earlier. But now, because of this, it can never return. Unless we have legislation. Unless they legislate to prevent this from ever happening again. Free and open discourse is the most important thing to a democracy. And once your leaders become so paranoid that they can't deal with the truth, it means for only one reason, and that is they don't believe in the truth. Whatever their narrative is no longer the truth. And so they have to cover it up. You see that in totalitarian governments where their truth is the only truth. Putin shut down all but one state-run media outlet, which they can only echo what's written for them by the government. I know China does the same thing. That sounds like a democracy to me, doesn't it? How about you? I hope you think so. Of course, sarcasm, by the way. If you're new to English, that was sarcasm. So, just reading my notes. Yeah, so I think the whole thing is a part of the Great Reset. Increasing the fuel, I don't think that the players we're hearing in the media are the ones that are controlling this. So, for instance, when the virus was here, we couldn't travel. And the use of fuel went down and our global climate got slightly better. Now we are free, to move around. The fuel price is going up to prevent us from traveling. Because you've got to think about this. Fuel price is really a price per mile cost. Increasing the price reduces the travel. Not everyone can just go where they want anymore. Since it's nearly twice the cost as it was before, you've got to consider, how are we going to go on holidays? Are we going to go on that driving holiday? Or are we just going to stay local? Because staying local, living local, working local is part of the Great Reset. That's what it is. It's crystal clear. The Great Reset is meant that we own nothing, we go nowhere, and we do nothing. We just work local. And we are happy. I just hope we're paid enough to be able to, drive to the shops, I suppose. Remember, everything that you buy that's delivered to your house isn't delivered in an EV. It's all fuel. And all of those costs are going up. Distribution centers, where every time an item is moved from one place to another, it adds to the cost of the product. We're seeing almost a doubling in coffee costs because of the shipment, you think about where it's grown. We all Arabica coffee from Peru. You think about that now. I'd probably prefer just to get the local stuff because, well, it doesn't have to come so far, right? Surely its price would be less than something that had to be on a ship for 8 months. And the cost of shipping containers is skyrocketing because there aren't any. They're all stuck on ships. We've never seen so much ship freight in the world, because remember how much was taken as what we call backhaul traffic on flights in and out of different countries. So air travel made air freight really cheap because the planes are going there anyway. It wasn't much to put a couple of ton on an aircraft, and and especially backhaul. So I remember one time sharing a half cargo plane to the US because no one was going there at that time, and the plane I was on was like a mail plane, or I don't know what you call it. It was a freight plane, and only half of the seats from, like, it was first class, and then the equivalent of business class, and then it was just, instead of having what do you guys call it, coach, instead of having coach all the way back, it was just freight up on that level as well as beneath. So yeah, that made shipping everywhere, and you could get something in a couple of days from anywhere in the world, and it didn't cost you hardly what it does today. I looked at something from the US. It was going to be $134 to ship, like, I don't know, 20 kilos or 10 kilos of something, which was rather small. Some car parts. But geez, goodness me, it wasn't like that before. Anyway, moving on. So, okay, so I covered that. Politics. Some interesting changes are occurring where while COVID wasn't wartime, it was the closest to wartime in a peaceful era that we could have, where strict controls and unrealistic autocracy styled oppression occurred on the people, and those leaders were they thought they might have got through this as like a war hero styled leader and not lose their position because they'd done so well. But the left won against the right in South Australia just this weekend, and it proves that just because you dealt with COVID, you are not a hero leader. That's the messaging that's coming out, and it's back to people. See, in Australia, the left is people focused and as a demographic, and the right is business focused demographic. So the sponsors for the left are the people, and the sponsors for the right are big businesses. And that's as close to fascism as you could possibly get, when the right is entirely sponsored by big business, and the only changes they make suit big business and nobody else. Everybody else has a negative impact by there only being big businesses, the stakeholders. They go, oh yeah, look, let's reduce wages. They never say that. I'm just being comical. Let's increase the labor hours to 24 hours a day, 8 days a week. We'll just make 100% of the time that you're supposed to be working. And if you get fired, well, you've got no recourse because they don't care. That would never happen. But that's what big businesses is crying for. You've got to make it cheaper for us. We can't. We're all getting poor. Mind you, they're making billions of dollars in profit. Oh, but we're all poor. We can't afford to employ people anymore. Well, the Great Reset was designed, in fact, for when robots and automation removed people from business, because you didn't need them anymore. The only reason we have people is because you can't write code to do what they do. Well, you could, but they don't want to spend the money for that because they're so cheap, right? All they're after is money. They don't care what happens to the people that they've employed. And I hope there's some businesses out there who completely disagree with me. Right? The only reason we have commissions to look after wages for people, because the businesses wouldn't do it anyway. They don't care. They wouldn't give you an extra cent if they didn't have to. That's why there's a minimum wage. That's at least the lower ceiling or the lower flooring of what they're allowed to pay you officially. Otherwise, if it was up to business, they wouldn't pay you at all because it's only profit. So last week, I think we mentioned that the differential between the big boss and the frontline worker is stretching like an elastic band, like you've never seen. And there's a wedge in there making them completely detached from the operation of the business, but rather only about their own bonuses. And the people at the front line who actually do all the work, do all and each part of everything, they do it all. Those people are disregarded as being important. It's such a shame that that is still going on today. But I want to segue across world news. This is about, I found a really interesting graph that ends in 2018, but it's still enough, I think, to send the message that I'm trying to. And this is captured from 1980 to 2018. It covers 4 points of material that it's been tracking. This website, it's US dollars here, and it's from III.org, www.III.org, Facts and Statistics Global Catastrophes. And geophysical events, that's like earthquakes and tsunamis, volcanic activity, and there's meteorological events, that's all, weather, hydrological events, that's floods and mass movement. And then we've got climatological events, that's extreme temperature, droughts, and forest fires. Now, lucky it doesn't have 2019, 2020, 21, and 22. Lucky it doesn't have that, because from 1980 onwards, there's a steady increase of the tropical storms, or extratropical storms, or convective storms, or local storms. There's an increase. It's double the amount of those across the globe. Next, the hydrological events. That's the floods and the mass movement. That is about 5 times higher in in density that we've seen, and that's only to 2018. And if that kept going, that would have been maybe 10 times higher. And the fires, unfortunately, which is the climatological events, that would also be monstrously high. That would be another 5 times higher in the last few years. The geophysical events, I have to say, they've really not much in that. It seems like there's a lot. I've been tracking it all this time since the 80s, and myself, I don't see a huge rise. I see there's a background radiation of this noise. It's a background noise, still there. It's always there, and it has little peaks and dips, and the dips don't go below 1980s dips, and the heights don't go higher than maybe an every 10-year little spike. It's almost cyclical, and the 10-year spike is very close to the sunspot spike. So when there's more geomagnetic change or extremes on the sun's surface, there would be, you could imagine, density waves being propelled out from the sun, which our Earth would be just captive to experience. So that's what I think. There's certainly a correlation. I think it needs a lot more investigation. So that was a big surprise to me, to see such an incline. So it's 4 times higher in total than it was in 1980 as a total of events, but some of these have either doubled or at least 5 times bigger. It's crazy, the numbers. Look, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking to anyway. So next, there's only 10 minutes left, and I think I've covered off all the topics I wanted to talk about. But here's the rub. When I'm talking to people about Ukraine, there are a few differing opinions. One is, they used to own it. Russia. It used to be Russia's. Okay, yeah, well, kind of it was. I'm not going to say it wasn't. They'd agreed to be part of the larger USSR. That's a complete definite. Had they stood up their own democracy? Yes. Is Russia a true democracy? Kind of not, right? kind of never, they kind of did, but it's their own brand, right? And I can't say that we've got a democracy, because that's also a crock. So we're closer to fascism than we are a true democracy with, true left and right in the middle, which is meant to be always the same place. There's no party that's completely in the middle, because the left shot so far left during the pandemic. It's just all crazy. You ended up against humans in some kind of really weird totalitarian styled autocracies where no one had voted for anything. Oh, that reminds me of a story. Trudeau there's an investigation whether to find any evidence of, and to see how far he had pushed Canada's laws. And if they find something, there may be repercussions for his role, or him sitting in the role. Because if they found that he'd acted inappropriately in any way, I think they've got their sights on him. So that's very interesting. What an outcome! I mean, the whole world watched in a gasp. In Australia, they were using mace and batons on protesters. These were peaceful protesters protesting against mask wearing, protesting against the narrative. Remember, protesting is part of a democracy. They didn't go after the wages of the people. They didn't take their assets from them. They didn't freeze their bank accounts. Not like Canada. That kind of peace-loving fellow that, you would imagine someone who represents the left should be, if they truly, their sponsors are the people, to go so heavily against people. That's just crazy. I never thought I'd see a day when that would happen. Because I always pictured the left to be green, tree-hugging, hippie types who, just want love and peace. But that was so authoritarian, it isn't funny. It's off. If there was a scale of authoritarian, that's like, I don't know, it's on the other page. It was in a book. Does my head in that someone could shift that far. Like, what happened? It was like it was an alternate universe. What they could have done is offered prizes for turning people in. If you think someone's supporting them, ring us up and turn them in, and we'll give you $10,000. Fabulous prizes to be won. You'll go into the monthly draw to win a house. They could have done that. That was the next step. And everyone caught will just go off for reprogramming. Of course, that's a ridiculous scenario, and let's pray. And not that I'm a religious person, but I'm certainly praying to all the leaders that never happens. That we don't get to a point where we have re-education farms and your assets are frozen or stolen just because you lost social credit. You've got to think about what they've got the power to do right now, which they've never had before. In the history of the world, there's never been a power so strong that the government has over us, as far as every word, every message, sentiment, personality cross-sections, psychological cross-sections. We're almost at a point where there is preemptive locking up of people because the AI predicted that we would commit a crime at some point in the future. I can't believe we're at this point. Imagine if you could shake alive George Orwell right now and go, "You were right," right? Or go back in time. Imagine you have a time machine and you go back in time and you tell him about the future and he goes, "Oh, wow, what a crazy world that is." And the next morning he writes the book. But your intention was to tell him not to write the book because they'll just do it. They'll take your book as a guidebook. This is an instruction manual on how to control the people. Wow, these are great ideas. Imagine a government today, they've never seen George Orwell's book and go, "Oh, you're kidding me." I'll use the media. Yeah, I'll use it. Yeah, Number one, just take a note. Let's use the media to control people. Yep. Well, they've been doing that for 50 years through television and advertising. There's a great TED talk from an advertising lady who says that she couldn't stay there because they were complicit in the programming of the people, even through advertising the government messaging. That was so strong. They were all connected. It wasn't just the news reading out the news articles. It was how to behave as a citizen through advertising. Good grief. Never thought we'd been programmed so hard. I've noticed the stuff that's in my Facebook feed that is there now is not what was there before. And I was posting a lot of I was posting a lot of material that made people think. And I was generating a lot of discussion, and the discussion was good discussion. And I quickly saw and was able to identify someone's viewpoint based on what I was witnessing on their own respective news outlets, because it didn't take me long to work that out, which side they lay, which messaging they were just rabbiting back to me. And I would ask them nice questions, saying, how did you come to that conclusion? What do you mean? How did I? Well, that's just what I think. Okay, so give me an example of why you think that way. They couldn't, because it's only inherited opinion. It's like someone was hypnotized to say a certain phrase. Then you ask them why they're saying that, and they haven't any clue, because it was only placed in there for them to say. There's no information for them to back it up. There was no argument. There was no, there was no pile of evidence for them to be able to discern that phrase or that idea. They honestly couldn't tell me. And then I was hoping that they could see from that that they had been programmed, and very few of them could see that for themselves. I didn't tell them, and they don't listen to this show, so it's fine. But to realize you're being programmed is an extraordinary skill, because that means you're kind of still awake. And if you can break it, great. Good for you. If you can break the programming only enough to realize that you are being programmed, then you're the only one, was it Gobbles from South Park? That was the turkey that had a lame neck, and it wasn't killed. And while all the others were doing their thing, it did it because it couldn't help it. But as a result, it's the equivalency of you and me, or the audience, having woken up and discovered what was real, what was really happening, even through mishap. So, yeah, I've got 1 more minute. Pardon me, I've got a little tickle cough, but I haven't got it's not COVID, not COVID. There's the music, and guess what? This is Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mickey. This is episode 522. We're continuing after the top of the break with Ancient Aliens. Stay tuned, and if you're on YouTube, there's a second show for the second hour. Take care, guys. Be back in a minute.